And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the AI Advantage Show, where we help marketers, innovators, and AI enthusiasts learn more about AI and gain insights and the connections needed to get the competitive edge using artificial intelligence.
We lost Colin, so I will just go on while waiting for him to come back. So, and I think that may be him now.
Hello.
Hey, Colin.
Hard crashed, so
Nice to see
I
you.
don't know how far I got through the introduction there.
You got to the hello.
Hello. Okay, sorry about that. That has never happened before. Well, welcome to a very exciting episode 17 of the AI Advantage Show. We're going to have to fix that later on. And if you're listening on the podcast, you didn't miss anything. Okay.
No.
But we're here to help you guys. We're going to help the marketers, innovators, and enthusiasts, business owners, help you get the insights and connections you need to get the competitive edge using AI. And today we're talking all about Custom GPT and why you should bet big on them in 2024. Kim, who do we have today?
So, really excited about our guest today. His name is Alden Do. I'm going to probably booger up the last name, and I'm very sorry, but Alden Do Rosario. And he is the CEO of Custom GPT, which Custom GPT was recently named to the top 10 emerging leaders in generative AI, along with OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Anthropic, blah, 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 a whole bunch of different ones. So, it's a very, very big honor. And they're an amazing, amazing product and company. And we are super, super psyched to be talking to him today.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Kim and Colin. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here. Yeah. So just to bring people up to speed, most people are familiar with ChatGPT and they've, at least dabbled and been using that. So what is Custom GPT and why should they care?
Okay, great. So what we built is a no-code platform to build the ChatGPT style chatbot with your own knowledge, right? This might mean documents that you upload, but more importantly, it also means web assets like websites and YouTube videos and audios and podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, we decided that businesses will need an easy no-code platform to build ChatGPT with their own knowledge and content, right?
Right.
And then put it
so
to use.
Yeah, and so the biggest use case really for this is, hey, here's a ChatGPT that is basically trained on all of your business's data, it can scrape your website, right? And then essentially form as like customer service and sales and kind of like your all-in-one chatbot solution.
Absolutely, yeah. That is the lowest hanging fruit, wherein you very quickly, with no developers, with no technical expertise required, you pop in your website, you get a chatbot with your website's content, and then you embed it onto your website. Your visitors help themselves, they solve their problems, the chatbot knows about everything. It is, in industry terms, it's called ticket deflection, where customers are helping themselves.
Well, it's very, very easy to implement because we actually had Custom GPT on our website. We're going through a little bit of a making some changes to the website right now, so it's not actually live this moment, but it was super easy to deploy and amazing the content that it was able to learn, just the knowledge that it gained about our site and our business. And we added extra documentation, etc., to do that. But it was shocking how just intuitive it was.
Yeah.
Correct. And while I would like to take credit for that, it is actually a lot of the power of that is the GPT-4 API, right?
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, we are using OpenAI's language models and we are using GPT-4, right? And then bringing the no code part of it, bringing the query relevancy part of it, bringing the data ingestion part of it into the equation. Uh, I'm a pretty old guy, and the little secret sauce is that it's actually search all over again, right? Is the same rules apply around query relevancy, around query log analysis, around data ingestion. We were one of the first people to use a sitemap as our
Mm,
primary ingestion. Right now,
mm,
all of us in marketing know how valuable a sitemap is,
yeah,
Yeah.
because if you don't have a good sitemap, then Google doesn't index your site, you
right,
don't get SEO and all of that. So
right,
while
right.
a lot of our competitors were going after documents, 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 right? And even you see OpenAI, they went after documents first.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We went after sitemap first,
Mm,
because that gives you the true Google style, like keeping things in sync, being able to ingest the right information, and all
mm.
of those type of advantages.
And so you said that this is the lowest hanging fruit, which this is tremendous value. I mean, if this is all you used it for, right? This is, I'm sure you've got some case studies and some metrics for that. But this is the lowest hanging fruit. I'd love to see like what's at the top of the mountain, right? But what's kind of like the next step that after just kind of seeding it with all of the content for your brand. You're not using it as a chat bot that's now helping you know increase conversions, lowering your ticket times, and increasing your customer service. So what's the next phase after that?
Correct. So the first one is the lowest hanging fruit, which I mentioned, which is you use it as a customer service bot. The second thing that is emerging is employee productivity, right? By including the your knowledge base and data about your company, you are allowing your employees to be much more productive, such that they themselves can be more effective in their jobs, they can resolve tickets much faster. All those internal workflows, those can be managed a lot easier. um,
So does that look like something like, hey, I've got a team member who would be normally, coming to a supervisor or manager or something, trying to solve a problem or figure something out, and well, instead now, hey, this is trained on all that stuff, so they can
Correct.
just go to that directly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So if you look at our customers, they are people with lots of internal knowledge, right? Legacy workers, people who are retiring. You have 6 different knowledge bases around your company, right? And information is splattered everywhere. We
Hmm.
make it like very easy to bring all that together and use it safely in an internal use case first, right?
Mm.
Every day these days, there's a New York Times article about how AI is going to destroy the world and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, the biggest fear inside companies is that AI is going to like destroy the world, and nobody
Yep.
has a clue. Besides the spelling of AI, a lot of people just don't have a clue what to do, right? So, the data safety part of it, and just the simple use cases and deployments for internal use first, that is turning out to be another use case that is emerging.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about data and security, because we are dealing with sensitive information here. We're dealing with sometimes, again, this is all the company. If depending on what they were going to add in there, documentation wise, you might be dealing with some sensitive data. When you're dealing with it facing the customer side, you might be dealing with some sensitive customer data, and we want to be able to protect our customers' data as well. So, can you talk a little bit about that and what safeguards are in place to
Correct. So
protect
there
data?
are two aspects to this basically. One is actually a business aspect, which is the best way to be safe is to start with publicly available data that is already public, which means that you are, it's almost a near zero risk for you as far as data security is concerned, right? Now, the reason for this is because even the data officers and security officers right now, they have no clue what AI does with their data, right? So when it comes to a deployment sequence, you are better off starting with publicly available data or data that you already sent to customers, things like that. That to me is the bigger, you know, aspect rather than the technical aspect. If you want to get into technical aspects, there are, you know, you can get into SOC 2, you can get into protection of data, you can get into anonymization, you can get into removal of PII, you can get into using Azure, which is a much more secure, you know, version of OpenAI. Like all of those issues come into the picture. But right now what I am seeing is the internal people itself, the security people, the AI people, they themselves don't have the confidence or the knowledge to talk about AI and security. So
Okay.
well, like there's a little bit of freeze happening, right?
Got it.
So how do you, when everybody else is frozen, how do you go ahead and deploy AI in your company? The answer to that is start with like near zero risk projects,
Yeah.
right? There is a concept of crawl, walk, run, fly, right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
part is really important, not for technical reasons, but more for business reasons,
Mm.
right? When everybody is clueless, everybody is scared, you want to start with a simple crawl project and show people that the world did not end, and wow, look at it, like this simple use case really worked, right?
Yeah.
Those are the type of case studies that we are seeing.
Yeah, and to your point, to the New York Times lawsuit, New York Times is suing OpenAI and saying that it's has its news articles inside its memory and can recite them verbatim. And I mean, I wrote an article about this week, and I said that this is publicly available data. I said this
Right.
is no different than a human who read the article and has a photographic memory and can now recite it. And I'm sure they don't like that answer, but I'm hoping
Yeah,
that's the way it goes. So, but yeah, if it's publicly available, it's safe because it's already out there. Everyone already has that information. So,
yeah,
great place to start.
yeah,
That's why the whole thing is surprising to me. The whole lawsuit is, and I'm really anxious. I'm sure a lot of people are anxious to see where it goes. But it's like us. We have a blog, and we put our thoughts down on the blog, and we talk about different topics. And none of it may be earth shattering, but I don't feel like I have a right to make money from its content specifically through OpenAI just because they use my content to train their models. I put it out there. We put it out there for free for public consumption. So if it's being consumed, then what could we possibly have to
Fair
say about
game.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
correct, yeah. And so this is a big hairy aspect of AI that will flesh out, right?
Yes.
And some of the points are legit, like, if the data is already publicly out there and they are it's not like, OpenAI is sitting there and like copying like text as such, right?
Right.
It's more around like, they are, at the end of the day, they are just predicting the next word,
Yep.
and it's just getting better and better at the next word.
That's what it's getting really good at it. I mean, I've even seen just in the last 6 months how
Oh yeah.
much more sophisticated the outputs are, which is
Yeah,
really
exactly. Like
exciting.
it's just fascinating to see like prediction getting like so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, on the copyright side, the only one that I feel like there might be some cases where if OpenAI did train on like books or things that were not publicly available, right, then that could be something that, you know, uh, might hold some water. But
Sure.
again,
Sure.
like, you know, nobody knows how judges will rule. And
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll decide it's for the greater good. This the knowledge that the GPTs have gleaned, or the models have gleaned from accessing all this public data, is for the public good, and they will say, go for it.
Yeah, I just don't see how that's enforceable. It's just like it's like once they explain how things work, like we say, it's like we really don't know what's going on. Like it's very it's creative, right? It's designed to be creative, and so it's trying to predict what
Yeah.
it thinks you want, and that's what it's gonna. And sometimes it's getting really good at it. So, but I want to talk a little bit. Let's go back to the tool itself, because I want to talk about just maybe some of the case studies that you've experienced, or maybe some unique use cases, and in particular, I think, what industries does Custom GPT work best in?
Right. So, should I do like a little screen share or something?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can totally do that. Our podcast listeners, they'll be a little bit upset. They're gonna have to watch the video, but
Watch
we are
video.
more than happy to have you screen share for those watching live and those watching the recording. So yeah, you should be able to just kind of add that in.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let me know when you're ready. I'll throw that up.
Yeah. So I'm ready now,
All right, here we go.
right? So this is a good example of a case study. What MIT wanted to do was they wanted to, oh, sorry, right? They wanted to bring together three knowledge bases and help out their entrepreneurship side and the students associated with it, right? So they did this with like zero coding, right? They brought, signed up for a system, pointed the system to the three uh, different cases, and boom, now students can straight away, get answers to, anything from the knowledge base, right? So there are some key features here that we had to put that you won't see in ChatGPT, right? The first one is that, the system is designed to not hallucinate. So this is something that your viewers will want to know about, because ChatGPT has been known to make up facts about
Yes.
things.
Yep.
So there's the biggest feature in our system is called anti-hallucination, and because we have so many customers, we were able to gather a lot of data and build one of the best anti-hallucination solutions, right?
Very cool.
These responses are designed to come within the information that is being supplied, right? So this is a good use case. You'll also notice here that it's showing citations.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
not about like, throwing some answer into your face. It's about where did this answer come from, so that people can click and, it's like a little bit faster version of search, right? So this
Mhm.
is one use case that is emerging. The other use case that is emerging is for research, right? So, uh, oh, sorry, so there is this researcher who has, you know, 30 years worth of research that he put into this bot, right? And now, and we are talking about like 500 papers of his, about hundreds of YouTube videos with presentations that he's given, right? And now anybody like his students or him or whoever can quickly get access to what his views are on a certain topic. It can get correlations between various papers, right? And basically investigate his whole library without having to, go and read PDFs. Nobody wants to read 200-page PDFs anymore. So
No, and go search for the answer, right? Go try to maybe find what you're specifically looking for, or maybe you're like, all right, I just got to go to the office hours, I guess,
exactly, right?
Right, right.
And the big thing these days is that, the power is mostly in the LLM, which is this
Mhm.
concept of like semantic search,
Mhm.
right? For people like us, we are used to Google and keyword searching, and Now it's become a lot of semantic searching, which is truly opening up, the power of these GPTs.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about hallucinations. And just for those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you know, it's essentially when the AI says something incorrect. It's trying to come up with the answer and it just really makes something up, right? And oh yeah, doesn't know that. Doesn't have does he just asked who's Donald Trump? It didn't have that information.
Yeah, but
But and I encountered one of these just yesterday. So I was working on something in the marketplace, and I've actually built in some self promotion into all of the custom GPTs that we're going to have in the marketplace, right? So that way everything will tie back to our agency. And it hallucinated. I was working with my wife. We wrote something random, and it says, oh well, you can go to our website to learn more about how you can care for your toddler and stuff like that. I'm like, well, that is definitely not accurate. So
No.
I'm like, we definitely need to put in a little bit more safeguards in there. So tell me a little bit more about the anti hallucination and how that is that kind of hard coded, and or is that something that actually you'd share, or do you have any tips on how people can build
yeah.
those into their own
So
GPTs?
yeah. So I wrote a Medium article about it and listed like about 7 different things that need to happen about anti-hallucination, right? Part of it is when instructing the GPT-4 API, you need to instruct it and say like, hey, here is the information that I have from my ground truth information, and please give the answer from within this, right? That is why in the example where I asked who is Donald Trump, that researcher and that research lab has no information about Donald Trump. So that's why it said, sorry, I cannot answer the question, right? But anti-hallucination is more than just instructing ChatGPT and the GPT-4 API to stay within the ground truth. It's about how you ingest the data. It's about how you uh, select stuff from your vector databases. It's about how you confirm what the user intent is. It's about how you translate what is happening in the conversation, into what how to search your knowledge base. So there are about like, because we dealt with so many customers, we were able to identify the sources of hallucination and slowly start plugging them one by one, right? So we spent like couple of thousands of hours like plugging in the holes in this anti hallucination pipeline basically, right? So this thing in technical terms is called a RAG pipeline, RAG, right? It's called retrieval augmented generation. And we had to go into the RAG pipeline and say, okay, hallucination is originating here, plug it. Or hallucination is originating here, plug it, right? And the other thing to say about hallucination is it's like a defect, right? You're never ever going to get to 100%, especially with something like, you know, GPT, which is being thought to be creative,
Right.
right? So from the perspective of your business use case, you have to decide like what is acceptable to you, right?
Yep.
I am like, I use a lot of GPT to create blog posts, and there are some blog posts which I pop onto some site of mine where I don't really care. So there, I'll leave Chat GPT to do what it wants and dish out the chat blog post and post it out there, like try and get some SEO traffic, right? But then there is certain sites like my own custom GPT site where I am responsible for my brand and what is being said. So
Yep.
for that, I never use ChatGPT. I use like a specific custom GPT bot with high anti hallucination locked in,
Hmm.
right? Then double check it with human editors
Yeah.
before it goes out, right?
Yeah.
People in marketing, this is a critical thing that, you know, uh, writing articles and blog posts. is really important, and this is like a feature that I don't see too many people having. And I learned last year that if you just create articles with AI and throw them onto your website, it creates like brand problems and it creates customer
Big
service issues.
time. Big time. Big
Yeah.
time. Because, I was building things like, just for example, just stuff that it would be like, well, you really need some data here and some case studies here. And I'm like, well, that's great. I'm like, but you don't have access to those. So you're just going to make stuff up. And it would just make up case studies. It would make up data. I'm like, well, that sounds fantastic. One example was, I was working on something specific that was like a resume builder that would build a resume based and cater it specifically for a job description. So that way it would kind of take your existing resume and augment it a little bit and cater it towards whatever job you were applying for, right? And it would say you worked at Anthropic. It would say, it'll tell you worked at Google for 10 years. It's going to make you look really good. The only problem is once they go to verify this, you might not get the job, right? So we want to avoid things like that. Obviously, that could be a big problem. So this anti-hallucination measure that you put in sounds really promising.
Well, I think it's really funny because when the AI is hallucinating, it knows. It knows that it's just making stuff up. Because I was writing a paper once, and part of the outline was, okay, I want to put in a case study about a specific hospital and their cybersecurity, blah 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 blah. And so, and I was using ChatGPT, and it came up with this great case study. And I'm like, that's perfect. That's like how to find that. I'm like, but I've never heard of that hospital. Oh, well, this is a fictitious example. I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
And so if you don't really read what you're writing, you could have some few problems.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. And
it'll do it. I think I created whole courses with fake case studies. I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
No.
I can't do this.
Because it'd be perfect.
Yeah. Like in my own AI journey, right? Like even before ChatGPT came out, I was creating blog posts with like Da Vinci, which was before like the GPT API. And what I noticed was this, the brand problem where it made up stuff so much that it just wasn't worth it, and the customer service issues that it would cause. Now I've swung the pendulum to the other side. I start with ground truth data and then say, let's use AI to create the blog post from the ground truth data.
Yeah.
Like you work reverse. And then you double check it with a content editor, right? The problem is, if you go only one way, if you do all 100% AI, that's just, you're going to have problems. If you do 100% human, that is very expensive and time consuming and just takes too long.
A lot of limitations there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the happy formula is about 90% of AI and then have the human, like, check up, finish it, create the narrative and things like that.
Definitely. And I've seen some, when you start really making these robust, like if you add some, and I don't know if people have done this, like let's say you've got this data set for a brand, right? Scrapes the website, whatever additional documentation. I mean, you just give it everything, the kitchen sink, and then you add another layer of instructions, like as far as like, hey, now we're going to add like some more human input as far as like tone, style, how we approach problems, like how we respond to customers, right? All even some more instructions, a layer of instructions on top of that. I'd argue it's going to outperform your humans, right? Now it might not get 100%, but it's going to outperform your humans.
You're completely right on the money, and that, in my own journey, that's what I found. So it initially started, I said, let's create the blog post using the ground truth information. Right? So I built a custom GPT very quickly with all our website, documentation, help desk, all that, and threw in like some Google results and stuff like that. So that was the ground truth, right? And I created a little tool to create the outline, and then create each of the blocks, right? So wrote the article, right? The good news was it was factually correct. The bad news was it looked like, chat gpt, like pretty much, how chat gpt like starts every sentence with like in the age of ai, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you
The
can
AI revolution.
that it's pretty much like chat gpt, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the next part of it was the real painful part, where I had to adjust what we call persona, which
Mhm.
ChatGPT is called custom instructions,
Yeah.
right? So in that, I had to go in and say like, okay, uh, adopt the tone and personality of Brian Dean, and have this type of burstiness, and here is my style, and
Yeah.
things like that. So that part is a constantly like adaptive situation, where you have to look at what outputs you're getting and
Yep.
tune it accordingly,
Yeah,
right? But
absolutely. Yeah.
uh, the good news is that, yeah, about 3 4 months ago I did post like 50 articles on one site, and they are ranking, and they look good, like
Yeah.
much better than any human could do like last year.
And way faster.
Yeah.
Right? The speed at which, what would you say this increases your output if you were just like 100% writing these articles on your own?
Oh, like 90% plus, right?
Yeah.
Like these 50 articles, I don't think I could have humanly done them. It would have taken like 200 hours, which
Mhm.
nobody has time for, right?
No.
Uh,
Yeah, you can't stop
Now,
everything and just write articles for 200 hours. Yeah.
yeah, right. Now, what I did is went to Ahrefs, did my keyword research, created the list of key phrases, went to chat gpt, said give me ideas for key blog post titles based on this, right? Based on that, I got the seo plan, key phrase, article title, meta description, right? Then I told my VA, use the tool to generate the article, right? And then there's a clear process. The best thing I liked was my total involvement in this whole thing would have been like 15 minutes, right? So 200 hours of my time versus 15 minutes of my time is
Yeah.
a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit of work on the front end, right? But then it's just one time,
Correct.
and then yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's off to the
So
races.
the big front end work was like that tuning and trying
Sure.
to behave like Brian Dean, or, you know,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
Brian Dean. I think, yeah, she's, yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of stuff we've been building personas now for about 6 months. And so we've just gotten better at our process of building personas, where we've kind of dialed it into a system, and that extra layer really does just improve the output tremendously.
yeah.
So, one thing I was noticing when you shared those case studies, examples of using the Custom GPT, is I was amazed by how they were different from what I envisioned the use case, and also how niche down they are. Like, especially, I mean, with MIT, and obviously all of the information is going to be regarding their programs and their school. But the other, the scientists that you had shown the example of, that was very, very specific. So when ChatGPT, I do have a question in here somewhere, but when ChatGPT first came out, um, people were using it for everything. And it seems to me that the use cases now are starting to become more and more and more specific. Is that kind of the beauty of what you do with Custom GPT, is you allow people to narrow the focus to the point where it's a specialist in one thing? Do you feel like that's where GPTs are moving, is specialization rather than generalization?
Uh, I think it's both. In some cases, if your knowledge is very specific, like if you look at some of our best customers, right? And I'll share my screen again. Uh, you'll see that, yeah, are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, we got that up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
So, like, we've just published like about 8 case studies, and there are about 44 more case studies coming up, right? And there are people who are, this is a non-technical lady. She built a chatbot for non-profit coaching, right? So this is driving like business for her. Then this is divorce online. They built a chatbot for off hours customer support, right? It turns out that when it comes to fighting couples, they fight during off hours. So this has driven leads and doubled his sales, since it was deployed, right? So this is another example. Then we have other examples where somebody built an entire like tool without using a single line of code. He gained like venture funding without writing a single line of code. So these are the types of like use cases emerging. In some cases it is very like knowledge oriented,
Mhm.
and in some cases it is very process oriented, right? The process oriented thing is starting this year. Like last year it was all about like, I'm going to build a GPT for SEO, or I'm going to build a GPT for, you know tax laws in Southern California, right? Now that thing is taking off, no doubt, right? Because the early adopters have now become like the next mainstream is starting to take over, right? And then now the early adopters and like the enthusiasts are getting into workflows and creating like these agents, right?
Mhm.
Like yesterday night I was working on getting an agent that acts like an interviewer rather than a Q&A bot, right? So you can imagine the implications of something like that. You don't have
Yeah.
uh, you know you don't have to interview people.
Yeah, for
AI
HR.
interviews. It's like a little role reversal. The AI is interviewing you rather than
Yeah.
you asking questions.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I saw and I think this was Indeed that had it, and it was kind of like called a one-sided interview or something like that. I might be getting that wrong. And they basically like would record your answers, and I kind of just did it for fun because and they they asked, one of the questions was, what animal are you? And I, of course, I came up with a very thorough response of how, I'm an elephant and just the best team player and leader and everything. And I thought it was a very articulate answer, but apparently they didn't like it. But even that takes quite a while, where you're recording an answer, and then I guess they have to listen to that recording. Where if you had a GPT that can do this and actually do the interview, you could kind of do like a kind of have that initial filter be done in that initial interview process, and have a good output there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. And the reason I went down that track is because, on Facebook, there was this rare disease foundation where they said, like, hey, our disease is so rare that there are only like 8 physicians in the world who know how to diagnose it. Right. And that sort of like, that became a little like challenge to me. And so I was like, all the information about your disease is already available. People have written PubMed research papers. Why can't we build a AI that can ingest all of that information, right? And give you answers, right?
Yeah.
So we were using like custom GPT, and 30 minutes, we were quickly able to create an AI with all information about that rare disease.
Very
So
cool.
that was the easy part.
Yeah.
Then it became like, okay, can you get this to behave like a physician, a diagnostic physician?
Right.
And that's where like the tables had to be turned, where instead of you asking the AI question, the AI has to follow a certain workflow,
Mhm.
ask
Right.
you a question, right?
Right.
And that part, um, I'm sure some research labs might have made more progress than me, but yesterday night we made some good progress on that.
Yeah.
Like,
And that is I've found things like that a little bit challenging. It's got to be, when you're going through a step-by-step process, right? Which is almost like kind of what that sounds like, where it's like, you got to
Yeah.
ask this question, get this response, and what do you do with that response, right? There's a lot of logic there, I would say, that kind of
Yeah.
just has
There's
to be
like a
put
little
in.
flow chart somebody has made,
Yeah.
and that flow chart has to be translated to English language.
To language. Yeah.
Then the AI should follow that flow chart. So that's where
Yeah.
the challenge is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a non-coder, right? And I'm a writer. So for me, this is kind of fun because it's almost like I'm coding with words in a way, and determining logic with words and language. And so that's been the fun challenge for me, is trying to figure out how to work with the AI using language. So
Correct. Right.
yeah.
If you ask me, one of the biggest trends from 2023 was this new English is the new coding language,
Mm,
right? And we have, in the case studies that I had pulled up, there are at least two where non-technical people with zero coding experience are creating these fantastic tools just by giving like instructions in English,
yeah. Yeah.
right? And as these workflows also get, once we have these agents that can do workflows, then we won't need to like code stuff and drag and drop and create those forks and all of that. We'll just be able to say like, if this happens, do this, else it do this,
Yeah.
right?
Very cool.
So it does open up. A billion English speakers are about to become coders.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a little scary or and exciting.
Well, that kind of opens up the conversation about the marketplace for
Mhm.
GPTs that's
Yeah.
coming soon, according to OpenAI. Tell us your thoughts on that. Like, how do you see that rolling out, and what opportunities where there'll be for small businesses and just everyday entrepreneurs?
Right.
Right. So this is a very exciting, time for for the rollout of that marketplace. So for people who don't know, OpenAI in November created their GPT builder. So you can go to Chat GPT, and if you have the $20 subscription, you can create your own GPT and throw up some documents and give it some instructions and get it to behave like what you want it to. So the exciting part is this week they are going to announce that they are going to come out with their GPT store, which means that you can now list your GPT in that store. And you know they'll have, just like the Apple App Store, they'll have like popular GPTs and fun GPTs and categorization, and all of that is what I'm assuming. But the most exciting part about all this is they've also said that there will be a monetization aspect to it. So what will that monetization aspect be? Nobody knows, but they have hinted that it's going to be a sort of usage based monetization. So you create a nice GPT, like cooking GPT, and a lot of people are using it, then they will share some of their $20 subscription revenue with you, is what has been said.
That's going to be really interesting. Because since I'm a marketer, I always think of all of these marketing use cases, but there's an entire world out there of people that aren't marketers that want to be able to, or should be able to, use GPT, or GPTs for various projects. And I think it's going to. Colin had mentioned this. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see the creative things that people come up with, because people just are so creative, and I'm super excited about this.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'm not sure how many goth girlfriends are going to be on there, but probably a lot. Is my guess.
Right. Yeah.
My wife's
And
like, "Why would anybody want to talk to an AI?" And I said, "Oh, honey, you have no idea what's going on out there."
yeah.
We've actually created it's called Speakeasy AI, and it's up there right now. I'm going to drop the link just if people want to check that out. I think you'll be able to see that on YouTube. But if you have a custom GPT account, you can go in there and kind of check that out and see what that's all about. But yeah, we're excited. We're going to have a bunch of our tools up there, kind of like some, I don't want to say watered down, but just not as robust of a tools that we're going to be creating for another project. But we'll definitely have some things on the marketplace. I'm excited to see what's going to be on there. Like what's going to be in the top? Is it going to be super functional things? Is it going to be more entertainment? Is it going to be personas you can chat with? Stuff like janitor.ai where you got everything on there. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what.
And somebody did figure out a way to hack into OpenAI's like GPTs and see what the numbers are. And they published a list of the top GPTs. And as you can imagine, like the first three are OpenAI's own GPTs, but the fourth one is like a cooking recipe one.
Yeah.
The fifth one is tarot and horoscopes and predictions, right?
Yeah.
Ah.
So all of us who are used to that made for AdSense type 2020 SEO keywords, you're going to see all of those like pushing into action again. You can expect insurance GPT, payday loans GPT, and
it's funny because one of the things I wanted to build with my wife is like a meal planner. So maybe not recipes per se, probably kind of works like that, where you would eventually go, hey, I want to plan out some meals for the week. Here's what I got in the house or something like that. And then what can I make? What would I need? And then it can kind of do some meal planning with you. So maybe I'll work on that. If that's one of the top ones, that could be really good. And I'm sure we could do it better than what's on there.
Right. But cool. What this does though, right, is it does show the world that GPTs can be monetized and have value, right? Just like Google came and showed the world that search can be monetized.
Mm-hmm.
Now OpenAI is going to show the world that GPTs can be monetized, right? And my feeling is that, and I have no inside information, but my feeling is that OpenAI will do a sort of like a subscription share model for people who get a lot of volume to the GPTs.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that'd be great. So what would be I know you say you don't have any insider information, but what would be some of your predictions of what you see, not only in the advancements of AI, the advancements of your tool specifically, but just what do you see on the horizon for 2024 for AI enthusiasts, marketers, business owners?
Right. So I'll take the last one first, which is, as far as our tool is concerned, the use of our tool as one of the best no-code RAG systems, building chatbots with your own data, that I'm hoping will continue into 2024, right? The exciting thing for me this week is that on the heels of OpenAI doing their GPT store, we also released our own monetization option, because my feeling is that people want to sell GPTs on their own terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are individuals who will want, to make $30 or $40 from OpenAI, but there are people who have real serious GPTs that want to sell it for $200 a month subscription, right? Or you are a consultancy that created a fantastic PDF report. You want to sell it for $600, right? Or you have created a fantastic course. You want to sell it on your own terms, whether it is a one-time payment or whether it is a subscription. You want to control usage to it. Think of it as like Shopify for GPTs. And that is what we released this week. So I'm taking a little bet that along with the consumer version of GPTs that OpenAI is doing, there will be a need for business-oriented GPTs that, people like the serious guys who are selling, multi-hundred or $1,000 subscriptions, to GPTs.
That's really interesting. I was going to say, it's really interesting you bring that up. We're going to have to talk to you off camera. about some of our ideas. But can you tell us a little bit more about this that you just came out with this last week, the subscription?
Yeah. So what we did is we took the concept of a GPT and made it licensable. So you can, just like how you have a checkout link at Stripe, you can now have a checkout link that sells a GPT, right? So an example would be like you build a nice, beautiful marketing GPT. You can now put it on your website with a buy now link, and you can have people buy it, and then you can decide what your terms are. You can have it be a one time payment, or you can have it be a monthly subscription. Whatever your business model is and what your pricing model is, we created an integration such that you can do that, right? So selling GPTs on your own terms is the feature that we released today.
Yeah. And I would agree with you for those who are serious. And, we've been, it's Kim's hinting at, we've been developing, a suite of different tools that are definitely more sophisticated. They're more for like, businesses who are looking to scale things like that. And yeah, like these are things that would never be on the marketplace. It's just not even possible, right? We would just never do that. They're just way too powerful. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a target market for that for sure.
And
Yeah.
the key to that is the knowledge that you have, right? And who is willing to pay
Right.
for it,
Right.
right? Like an example customer we have, he has extremely specific tax knowledge in
Yes.
the UK, right? And
Yep.
so he's built this GPT with UK laws, UK tax laws, intelligence around the laws,
Yep.
expert control instructions, everything. Like now, this is a very valuable. It's almost like a consultant that you are getting,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
something that is sellable, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With expertise. If you're just pulling information from different places and throwing it somewhere, that is not something that people might be willing to pay for. But
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
an expert consultant, expert GPT, that is,
Yeah.
he's already seeing fantastic like
Oh, I bet.
adoption of it. He keeps calling us every month saying like, hey, can you re-up our queries, and we need more queries.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. No, I agree completely. That's kind of part of our strategy as well, with what we've been building. And it does come down to the expertise, right? And if you're in the agency business, I feel like if you're smart about it, you're selling your expertise, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like you said, especially in the consultancy space, that's really the way to do it. And I will tell you firsthand, the builder, because we've been doing, like you've been doing this for a year now. We've been doing this for about the same time, and we've just developed these techniques for already building kind of custom personas and things like that. And I don't want to use the word rudimentary, but I will just say that the builder is kind of just giving you a quick and dirty version of instructions, right? And I've seen it firsthand because I've used it, and then I've had instructions already pre-built, and it will just blast through those. Like, to give you an example, it limits the character count to 8,000. Okay. I had instructions that went up to like 25,000 character counts. And
Okay.
I'm sure, I don't
Yeah.
know how big some of your instructions are for some of your custom GPTs, but I'm sure the character count's pretty high, right, Alden?
It's at least like 10,000, and we make it higher if people need it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. To offer that refinement, right? Now, that does cut into your context window, right? So you don't want to
Correct.
go overboard with it. But
Yeah.
when
We
you're
just
looking
have
at that,
different context win sizes for different parts.
yeah,
Like, well,
exactly. But it is just not even near what you can do. So I agree. I think there's going to be a market for these more customized and very niche type of
correct.
custom
Yeah.
GPTs. Yeah, that just
And
aren't going to
then
be available on the
there's
market.
another slight problem also, which I hope like OpenAI will plug at some point, which is, you build a nice GPT, you upload some documents, and if somebody can just copy those documents and your instructions, now
Right.
what is the value of all the time that you put in?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's the thing where I'm like, there's just things we're not putting up there because are people just going to take it? Like, what happens with that? So, yeah,
Right. And then
yeah,
there's the other additional issue of like it's still not clear like you upload documents, is OpenAI learning on those documents, right?
Correct.
In the current chat GPT terms, my understanding is that they are, right? If
Yes.
you're using the API, they are not. If you're using the enterprise version, they are not. But the $20 system
Yeah.
Right.
is, and so that, in the next version of GPT, all your document information, you could be like the New York Times.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's why we use Colin and I for our clients. We use a different solution called Magi, magai.co, and because they specifically, guarantee they don't share your information with the API, the OpenAI API, ChatGPT OpenAI AI and API, and so
That's true for us also. We use not just OpenAI API, which means no training.
mhm,
But for our enterprise customers, we use the Azure version of OpenAI, which
ah,
also has like additional protections
right.
and a no eyes policy and other like security requirements that Azure offers.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I think that OpenAI has to address that even with their $20 plans because people are going to start to get more savvy and understand the value of their own data and not want to share it even for, the $20 when you can go and use another solution like Magi for $19 or $9 and have that protection built in.
Right.
So, love Magi. I'd throw that out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's allowed us to be able to do what we've been doing now for 6 months. Where people are kind of most users, I think, are just going to now have that ability with the custom builder.
Yeah.
Right, right. And that's the good news here, right? That there's a market for everyone. Like, you're
Yep.
not going to have like one solution where everything works, right?
Right.
And it's good for the whole ecosystem. From our perspective, we have to keep innovating. We can't just assume that OpenAI will do everything. We have to listen to businesses and keep adding and innovating stuff as
Absolutely.
demands.
Absolutely. I think if I had to read tea leaves, I think this is going to be like the year of adoption. I really think marketers and businesses are really going to like kind of embrace and start adopting it and figuring out how this works into their workflows.
Yeah.
So I think there is going to be a lot of opportunity. Even if you like look at some of the conferences, it's like it doesn't matter. It's marketing. It's all AI. It's like because that's what the people want to learn. They're like, okay, they're kind of woken up to it now. Like I got to learn how to use this because I know the other guys are using it and they're getting way ahead. So
Totally. And I can see this in our own customer calls. Like last year, it was all these like ninja tech, early adopters would be like,
yeah,
whoa, do these ninja moves, jump through hoops, and, manage to get it done. Right.
yeah,
This year, the the type of customer is changing to like, I need to do my first AI project,
right,
hold my hands,
sure,
and let's get it done. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
And in response to that, I had to create like a prototyping package, like with, you know, for
Yeah, I saw that.
marketees and system integrators, wherein it is just like, here we'll show you the best practices to do your first AI project, right?
cool,
Because of all the intricacies that are
sure,
associated with it.
sure, yeah, very cool.
Well, we're getting low on time here. It's getting
We
a little
are.
bit late. So we want to give you a chance to just tell us a little bit more about Custom GPT, how people can find you, and what they can do with your service.
Awesome. Thanks. First of all, like, thanks, Kim and Colin, for having me on the show. I really appreciate
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hope that we could add some value to your listeners.
Oh,
Today.
tremendous.
Yes.
Once again, we are CustomGPT.ai, and we let businesses create custom versions of GPT and chatbots with their own knowledge, right? This knowledge can be your website, it can be your YouTube videos, audio files, you can upload documents, PDFs. We support 1,400 different types of documents. And then you can deploy it by embedding it on your website, putting it as your live chat, integrating it into your APIs. And the big news this week was you can now sell your chatbot if you so choose under your terms. So
We
that's
might
I
have to
can't.
do that. We might have
I,
to have a
yeah,
few that will be willing to kind of open to the public, and it honestly might be a better option than marketplace.
right.
Because I think a lot of people kind of would like to get the extra refinement and stuff that we're not going to put on marketplace. We're gonna this one's a little bit better, So
Yep.
very
I'm
cool.
excited to check it out. As soon as we're finished with this show, I'm hopping over to go look at it.
Definitely. Well, thank
awesome.
you so much, Alden. This has been tremendous value. I'm sure it's been tremendous for us to learn more. We're very excited to see where you guys are going this year and just where the future of AI is. So we'll definitely love to have you back on as you guys offer new features and learn more things that will be valuable for everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Kim
All
and
right.
Carl. That's been awesome.
All right.
Bye,
See you next
Alden.
time. Very cool. It's going to be a very exciting week.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens. We do have some things coming up on the horizon. Again, maybe it'll be some custom GPTs through our website, but we do have a lot of tools we've been working on in the background. So lots of fun stuff coming up ahead. Kim, anything you got before we wrap up?
Nope, we're a little over the hour, so I think it's time to say adios, friends, and
Adios, friends.
check you out next week.
We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Have fun
Yep.
out there. Bye-bye.
Bye.